Hi, so this is going to be a short video talking about some tech I came up with that I call hammer tech. Sorry, I might look a little bit crazy. There's a reason I call it hammer tech though. The reason for this tech, which I've found to be very successful and other people have told me has been very successful, comes from how a hammer works. And it's how Lidia works in her versatility by utilizing this tech. It is fully revolved around heat, it is revolved around having 3 stacks, and it is revolved around punishing the opponent for defending. Excuse me. How does it relate to a hammer? Well, the hammer has 3 parts. It has the back end, which can be used to remove nails and break through a board in the same way that this tech is going to be able to break through your opponent if they're defending. The flat side is going to be used for hammering the opponent into the ground if you hit them with any of the moves I'm going to talk about. And the handle is going to be for versatility because hammers have a head that is put onto a taper on a handle, and the handle allows for you to be able to change the head out so you have the means to be able to choose the right tool for the job. And so to that end, we're going to start with the back end, which is the entire crux of how this tech works and what we're going to be utilizing most of the time. This tech is going to start with a heat engager. So we're going to do this into this, into this, into this, into this, into this. And look how much health the opponent just lost. After they got hit with one back one, they have lost a total of 70% for just blocking. And here I'll show you an example of how this works in an actual game. There we go. So this is sort of demonstrating the potential power of Lidia with 3 metals, and that's how we use the back end of the hammer in hammer tech to be able to punch through the opponent's defense, is by utilizing the strong chip damage. But the other thing we have to keep in mind as well is, why are we doing Heaven and Earth 2? The reason why we're doing Heaven and Earth 2 is because it's safe. Almost all of these moves on block, the opponent has no way to actually be able to counter the Heaven and Earth 2, and it leaves us at +6. We don't want to use the unblockable here, because if they duck the unblockable at any point during this sequence and launches, then all of that gray health that we just dealt to them, they're going to recover in their combo or their heat engager, and the entire heat state is going to be for nothing. So the entire point is for us to stay as safe as possible while still dishing out plus frames and being able to continue our offensive pressure. So whenever you go into Heaven and Earth, you do not want to do the unblockable, you do not want to do 1, you just want to be doing 2. However, there are gaps in the sequence that I showed you. One is going to be right after the heat engager, the 1+2. The 1+2 here is a 31 frame move, you're +17 after heat engager, which means you can be interrupted by a move that's 13 frames or faster. 14 frame move will trade. However, there are ways to be able to get around this, and that's the entire point of this tech. It's going to work very similar to how Lidia's stances work. You have relatively safe options that cover a lot of what the opponent can do to defend, but there are counterplay options. However, if you have a read on those counterplay options, you can get big reward out of them. So if I do this and then running 1 instead, you can see that's going to beat out the jab punish and then do 80 damage, on top of us still having all of our heat. That's where the head part of the hammer comes into play. When you hit running 1 or 1+2, then you do the Heaven and Earth 1, you're hammering them into the ground. At least that's the idea I came up with. What really brings this tech together though is, outside of these few options like jab for instance, there actually isn't really any way for the opponent to deal with this at all, because all of these options that we'll be utilizing go through parries and armor. So the only thing that the opponent can do here is sidestep or jab. But if we do the running one, then it will beat both of those options just because of how plus we are. At that point, they would have to duck. But then if they duck, then we have forward 2, we get this, and then we basically get to do the same thing with Heaven and Earth 2. On top of that, there's a good chance that the opponent is going to want to duck at some point because most opponents think that they're smarter than you, and they think, oh, he's definitely going to do the unblockable this time, so there are probably going to be points where the 2 hits anyway. And of course, when that happens, especially at the wall, then you're getting 80 damage again. That's how the flat head of the hammer comes into play. Basically, if they try doing any counterplay to this tech, then you're not getting punished very hard at all most of the time, but the opponent is getting absolutely demolished. So the risk reward is going to be in your favor most of the time, even though there is counterplay to it, and that makes it worth doing. And because of how strong your options are to beat the counterplay, it's going to make the opponent not want to press anything. Then when that starts happening, you can start making them scared by charging the 1+2, and then you go and do more plus damage. Plus damage, I meant chip damage. There are a couple more points in this sequence where you can get interrupted. For example, if you just don't charge the 1+2, then you're only +1, which again means that can be interrupted by jab. But if the opponent is being super defensive, then you can charge the 1+2 to stage 2 and you're +10, which means they can't sidestep, they can't interrupt, they can't even armor move or rage art through the mix-up. This can also make the mix-up fairly ambiguous for the opponent because there's no real tell that you've actually made them block the stage 2 version of the 1+2, so you might get opponents who try armoring through because they think that they're only -1 when in actuality they're -10. Finally, when we get to this part of the sequence, the running one can be interrupted with, again, a jab. In that case, when you're +6. So this falls back to our normal frame trap options where we can do forward 2 to beat out jab, right? So again, counterplay options, and we're doing 45 damage there on top of the 17 chip damage. So we're getting pretty much a combo's worth of damage just off of that forward 2. And again, keep in mind that the Heaven and Earth 2 there is guaranteed. They can't do anything, and then you get to repeat again. So this comes back to the same thing as the 1+2, where, yeah, the running one can get interrupted, but if they try interrupting it, then the forward 2 is going to beat them. Also, if they try sidestepping it, you just delay the running one a little bit, and you go and they hit them out of sidestep. If you do it immediately, then the sidestep can hit them, but if you delay it just a tiny bit, then the running one will realign and it will hit them out of the sidestep, and again, you'll get 80 damage. Then the last interrupt point in the sequence is going to be right here with the heat smash. You're +6, the heat smash is 18, so it'll trade with a 12-frame move. But again, it's only going to trade with a 12-frame move, which means the only thing they can do to counter it, again, is jab. And if you think they're going to jab, then because you're +6, we go into the same options as before with forward 2, down back 3. But in this case, actually, because of how little heat we have, we actually want to do down forward 2. What's the reason for doing down forward 2 in that case? Well, the reason is we have just enough heat to be able to go into Heaven and Earth if the down forward 2 is blocked and continue on that chip damage train. If the down forward 2 is counter hit, then we get 3 heat dash guaranteed for a full combo to end off our heat, which is again 80 damage. This is the power of the flat end of the hammer. And so the point in demonstrating all of this is while there are holes in all of these options that Lidia has to deal with this chip damage, the risk reward is always going to be in your favor. All the opponent can do is jab or down jab to get you out of it. And what you can do is deal 80 damage to them if you have the right read on what they're going to do. And on top of that, even if they block the attack, like if they block forward, forward 2, you can keep the offense going by just manually going into heaven and earth, or you can do your mix-ups from stance like normal and then go into heaven and earth later. And of course, if the mix-ups hit, then it's going to do more damage. So as people maybe learn about this tech and learn how to counter it, it's going to get a little bit more muddy and a little bit more flexible in how you deal with the counterplay options. It's not going to always be the optimal thing that I showed you at the beginning of this video necessarily, but it's going to still give you an idea and a path in order to get the maximum effectiveness out of your heat when you are at 3 medals. Then the last thing we have to talk about is, of course, the handle, the versatility in what I have dubbed as hammer tech. The versatility from this comes from the fact that because you're locking them down and doing safe moves, you can sometimes afford to do unsafe moves. What do I mean by this? Well, if I just do the sequence one more time like normal, I just did unblockable, right? So chip damage, of course, isn't going to kill the opponent. Also, chip damage is reduced by 75% when the opponent is in rage, which means that the chip damage isn't going to do a lot if they've gone down in the rage. While I generally don't recommend doing the unblockable because, again, opponents think that they're smart a lot of the time and will try ducking the unblockable even if you've only done 2 the entire match, there are going to be times where the unblockable just makes sense to do. For example, if you think the unblockable is going to win you the match, not the game, but the match, then doing the unblockable is going to be a lot more powerful and a stronger option than if you were to do it before. If you've conditioned the opponent to only block because you've kept doing heaven and earth 2, then the unblockable is going to be more likely to hit than if you've been trying to mix them up with it the entire game. And it's going to be more pivotal because that unblockable, instead of just getting you some damage or maybe getting you a round, is going to get you the entire match, which of course is more significant than even winning a round or a game. Oh shit! Okay, I really needed that. GG's. On top of that, if we go through our same sequence here, we can do something like house sweep. So if they're just stand blocking all of the time, then we can get real damage in with house sweep. And then again, same as before, go in the heaven and earth and continue our pressure. So you have a lot more options than just what I showed you. There's a linear path here, but there are lots of deviations depending on what the opponent does, what you want to do, what the game state's in, and it allows you to really choose your own adventure when using hammer tech. How are you going to nail them into the ground? How are you going to use both sides of the hammer? What hammerhead are you going to use? Maybe you want a mallet. Maybe you want to just hammer them both ways. Do the 1+2, do the heaven and earth 2, and then hell sweep them. And then do the heaven and earth 2 again. And then while running 1. And then do unblockable and win the match or something. Maybe you want a mallet. Maybe you want a normal size hammer. Maybe you just want 2 sides that just pull out nails. God knows. But the point is to show that there's a lot of versatility in what you can do with this tech. A lot of people have come in and asked me about the tech. A lot of people who I've showed the tech have found a lot of success with it. So I really recommend that you go out and try this as well in some of your games and see how it goes. As people find out about this tech more people start using it and more counterplay is found for it, it's going to become less useful. It's not going to become as easy to just throw out and get that half health and chip damage. However, I hope I've demonstrated in the future when people start finding those counterplay options, how you're able to get around that, the decision making that you have to go into when using this, how you have to gauge the opponent, how you have to condition the opponent in order to make these options work, and hopefully just give you a good understanding on how to better utilize Lidia's heat and use it to its maximum potential. Anyway, I hope this video helped you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.